So we are zooming into the crime stats which were announced by the police minister earlier today. And of course, when he announced those crime stats, we saw the sexual offences being decreased by 35.9%. And for more on this discussion, we're now joined by Advocate Nthabiseng Sepanya-Mogale, who's the chairperson of the Commission for Gender Equality. And she joins us for a conversation on sexual offences decreasing by 35.9% between July and September this year. And she joins us via our phone line. And Nthabiseng, thank you so much for joining us here on the Late Edition. Perhaps let's start off here. What is your reaction when it comes to the latest crime figures being announced by the police minister and showing a decrease when it comes to sexual offences?
The decrease can only be welcome. You know, we are placed with the scourge of sexual violence in our country, and any decrease is welcome.
Would you say that we are beginning to somewhat win the war against violence, especially violence against women?
Yes, I think to some extent, not totally, but I think to some extent. For the following reasons. One, the communities and everyone out there as citizens of South Africa and beyond are now aware that it is something that has got to be frowned upon. It is a crime that has got to be reported. Whether there is report or not, it's another thing. But it is a crime that if there's unlawfulness there, it has got to be reported. So there's some frowning upon by society, which is helping to decrease it.
And Nthabiseng, as much as, we see these figures, and you are saying that as much as the police minister says that it's something that we shouldn't celebrate, but it's something that we can acknowledge in our society. And when it comes to what it translates to on the ground, I mean, the latest incident in which we saw just a while ago is, of course, the incident at the University of, a university in the Western Cape, where we saw a husband stabbing his wife on campus. You know, what do these figures actually translate to from what we see on the ground? And, this is basically the reality of many South Africans.
I think, as I've pointed out, on the positive side of it is that maybe something right is being done finally. And over and above that, maybe people are beginning to see, perpetrators and potential perpetrators are beginning to take a step back and see this violence for what it is, an unlawful, something that is wrong, unlawful actions, etc. And on the other hand, it could be efficient and effective policing, where people now know that once they do this, the law may reach them, and once the law reaches them, there will be prosecution and conviction where the crime has occurred. But it could also be a myriad of other reasons why the statistics has improved. And all of those need to actually be known before one can say, yes, it is positive, or no, it actually is not negative. It is not positive. Every little bit of decrease in violence has got to be celebrated somewhat. But we need to go beyond that and say, how did it happen? And strengthen that if it is positive things.
What would you say still needs to be done in our country to see a further decline and a further decrease that, femicide and gender-based violence is something that, we shouldn't even be discussing, from the work that you do with the Commission for Gender Equality, what do you think is lacking in South Africa for us to have a complete, do away with gender-based violence in our country?
I think at all levels, society and the different sectors of society need to start coming out as strongly as they are of late. The churches need to start condemning rather than putting it within a context of women being submissive. Families need to start speaking out and say no. An injury to one is an injury to all, rather than what usually happens to say this is a family matter, etc. At workplaces, sexual harassment, rape, anything that happens, everybody needs to actually say it must be outed, people must be named and changed. More and more men, like they are doing now, must stand up and say, not in my name, talk about it. But at the level of duty bearers, we need to now see duty bearers saying, I, as a police officer, I'm going to make it my duty that anybody who reports this matter, I do not minimize it, I do not undermine it, I take it up, I investigate well, I gather evidence properly, I package it properly in such a way that at court nothing is undermined. Prosecutors have also got to play their role to say, we've got to nail this person where, as far as they're concerned, prima facie, there is a case to be answered so that the person is either convicted or exonerated. And the courts have got to give prison sentences that are consummate to the crime, so that at every level, the entire value chain, there is a discouraging of violence as an alternative or as a form of doing things.
And from the work that you do, what would you say, is something that clearly shows is the major contributing factor to gender violence in our country? What would you say that is something that South Africans are battling with? And I mean, even earlier on, you spoke about the issues of silencing people and sweeping, violence against women under the rug. And it's something that, is taboo, and we shouldn't even be speaking about in the public and our neighbors. What do you think still is highlighted as the main contributing factor and remains a problem when it comes to gender-based violence against women?
The biggest that research has even proven is misuse and overuse of alcohol. There are high numbers of rape and sexual violence that happen around situations where there has been a misuse and overuse of alcohol. Same as drugs, misuse and overuse of drugs. So that is one area that we as South Africa have got to go there and start opening those conversations about the excessive use of alcohol that in turn tends to lead to certain anomalies in our societies where, there's lawlessness, if one could use that phrase, borrow that phrase. So alcohol is number one. But number two, it's the perception that people can get away with it. That is why I was saying, if we can have police officers that say, if I get this case, I'm going to make sure that I investigate it thoroughly and make sure that if there is a perpetrator here, that perpetrator is brought to book. But again, our courts have got to meet us halfway. There is no way people can know that I will murder, get 15 years, and 6 years later, I'm back in the street. Something is not right with that equation as well out there in the correctional service space.
Advocate Nthabiseng, thank you so much for your time. That is Advocate Nthabiseng Sepanya-Mogale, who is the chairperson of the Commission for Gender Equality, just giving us her insights when it comes to the crime stats in which we saw, and of course a major decrease there when it comes to sexual offences, a decrease of 35.9%.